Hi, it's cleaning out my attic, and I have ESL Teacher's Holiday Activity Kit, and I forgot to read this for Easter, and before Easter was Passover. I'm not sure what day it was, but all about Passover. Passover is a holiday for Jewish people. This year, Passover is, when is it? I'm not sure when it was. It was a couple weeks ago. Jesus celebrated the Passover on Thursday, the Last Supper, and Friday he died. Sunday he rose again. So Jesus was Jewish and was in a Jewish culture. So that Christians often study Jewish culture in history. So this was around 1500 years before Jesus. So this is Exodus, celebrating Moses' Exodus from, and Moses and the Jewish people, they're leaving Egypt. So let's read about it. Passover is a holiday for Jewish people. This year, Passover is, I'm not sure, April. Before Passover, before Passover, Jewish families completely clean their house. They empty and wash every closet. No dirt or dust may remain. No bread or yeast may be in the house. On the first evening of Passover, Jewish families get together. They have a Seder. Not sure how to pronounce it. They have a Seder. The Seder is a special way to remember the history of the Jewish people. People wear their best clothes. Men wear small prayer caps called yarmulkes on their head. The table is set very carefully. There are many things on the table. There's a big bone from a lamb. There's matzo, crackers. There are boiled eggs. There are bitter herbs and sweet charoset. There's a cup of salt water. There's a cup filled with wine for Elijah the prophet. The youngest child asks questions about this special dinner. Everyone reads from the Haggadah. The Haggadah is the book about the first Passover. Then they enjoy the dinner. They eat matzo instead of bread. They open the door so Elijah can come in and join the family. So the Old Testament is prophecy of the Christ. And we believe that Jesus came 2,000 years ago. And Jewish people, I guess, believe that Elijah is coming. All about Passover. Do you know these words? Find these words in the story. Draw a line under them. Copy the words. Write the meanings. We can say it together. Passover, holiday, Jewish, families, get together, Seder. I'm so sorry about that. Seder, special, remember, history, empty, closet, dirt, dust, remain, clothes, prayer caps, bone, lamb, matzo, egg, herbs, charoset, salt, wine, prophet, youngest, Haggadah, join. So a Seder is, what is a Seder? A cap, a book, a prophet, a special dinner, flatbread. That's right. Seder is a special dinner for Passover. Yarmulke is a cap, a book, a prophet, or flatbread. You're right. A yarmulke is a small cap. I think in the Old Testament it says cover your head when you pray. Number 3, matzo. Is that a book, a prophet, or flatbread? That's right. It's flatbread. Elijah the prophet. Elijah. Is it a book or a prophet? You're right, it's a prophet. And the Haggadah, the only one left, process of elimination. The Haggadah is a book about the story of Passover. We'll have to have a little Seder, I think. Seder. I've only been to one or two, but they were very special. Before Passover, Passover is a Christian or Jewish holiday. The Passover is a Jewish holiday. That's right. Or there's also a group called Jews for Jesus, so it could be it's mainly Jewish, but Christians adopt it sometimes. Before Passover, Jewish families completely clean their house or table. That's right, their house. Before Passover, Jewish families completely clean their house. And I know the Chinese clean their house for New Year's. Do Americans clean their house? Sometime, I'm sure. There are many things on the table. There is a bone from a cow or lamb. Well, I'm sorry, bumped that. There's a bone from lamb of God. The oldest or the youngest child asks questions about this special day, dinner. Oh, I forgot. Is it the youngest? The oldest or youngest child asks questions about the special day. Number 6. The youngest child asks questions about the special dinner. Number 10. After they read the story of Passover, they eat the dinner or clean their house completely. After they read the story of Passover, they eat the dinner, I believe. So let's go ahead and read it. Story of the first Passover. A very long time ago, the Jewish people were slaves in Egypt. They had to work for the king or Pharaoh. Another name is Pharaoh. They had to work for the king or Pharaoh. The Egyptians were very cruel to the Jews. Moses was a Jew. One day, Moses heard the word of God. God said, "Go to Pharaoh. Tell Pharaoh to let the Jews leave Egypt." So Moses went to Pharaoh. "Let my people go," he said. That's the song, "Let my people go." "No," said Pharaoh, "get back to work." So Moses is trying to talk to the Egyptian Pharaoh. It's like, "Let my people go. You're too cruel." Then God turned all the water in Egypt to blood. The river turned to blood, and all the fish in the river died. The people could not drink the water. So God is giving a curse and saying, turning the water into blood. But Pharaoh would not let the Jews leave Egypt. Then God made frogs come up out of the river. Millions of frogs jumped everywhere. Frogs covered the land. Still, Pharaoh would not let the Jews leave Egypt. We'll have to read Exodus sketchbook. Then God sent gnats, silent G. Then God sent gnats. Millions and billions of tiny little gnats flew on all the people and animals. I just went to the river and there were a bunch of gnats. No fun. Then God sent gnats. Millions and billions of tiny little gnats flew on all the people and animals. Story of the first Passover. But Pharaoh would not let the Jews leave Egypt. Then God sent flies. Then God killed all the cows and horses and donkeys. Then God made sores on the people's skin, and he sent hail that killed the plants in the field. He sent locusts to eat all the plants. He sent darkness for 3 days. So God is doing these 10 curses, 10 plagues. The flies, killing the animals, sores on people's skin, hail, locusts or kind of grasshoppers to eat all the plants, and darkness for 3 days. But Pharaoh would not let the Jews leave Egypt. Finally, God told the Jews to put the blood of a lamb over the doors of the Jewish houses. At night, God killed the firstborn son of every Egyptian family, but he passed over the doors of the Jewish houses. So one of the last curses, I think it was the last curse, was put blood of the lamb over your door, and your oldest child, firstborn son, will not die. So a curse or plague went over, and firstborn child died in the houses, but if it was covered with blood over the doorway, death would pass over that house. All the Egyptians were crying. Even the firstborn son of Pharaoh was dead. This time, Pharaoh said, "The Jews may leave Egypt. Go." It's like, okay, just leave already. The Jews left their homes very quickly. They did not have time to let their bread rise. They followed Moses. They went to the east. Pharaoh saw them go. We need our slaves, he thought. He sent his soldiers to stop the Jews. He sent his soldiers to stop the Jews. The Jews were at the Red Sea. God made a wind that divided the waters. The Jews crossed the Red Sea on the dry land. Pharaoh's soldiers followed the Jews into the sea. The wind changed. The sea covered Pharaoh and his soldier. They all died. Every year, Jews remember the Passover. They tell about the flight from Egypt at the Passover Seder. So the Jews finally left, and they were at the Red Sea. I need to show that scene from a movie. And God parted the sea, and the Jews were able to cross. And then the soldiers tried to cross, but the water came back on the soldiers, and they died. Do you know these words? Find these words in the story. Draw a line under them. Copy the words. Write the meanings. Slaves, Egypt, Pharaoh, cruel, voice, God, leave left, blood, turn water to blood, died, frogs, to cover, covered, land, gnats, flies, sores, hail, locusts, darkness, finally, lamb, firstborn, sun, passed over, quickly, soldiers, sea, wind, divided, crossed, dry, remember, flight. Number 1, the Jews were slaves in Egypt or Israel? The Jews were slaves in Egypt. The king of the Egyptians was Moses or Pharaoh? The king of the Egyptians was Moses or Pharaoh? Pharaoh. Moses was Israelite, Jewish. God told Moses to tell Pharaoh to let the Jews leave or come to Egypt. God told Moses to tell Pharaoh to let the Jews leave Egypt. You got it. Good job. Pharaoh said yes, or Pharaoh said no. Pharaoh said no. Well, about 10 times Pharaoh said no, and then finally he did say yes. God turned the river to Water or blood? God turned the river to blood. God sent blank and blank and blank and blank and blank and blank. This is a hard question. And God sent sores on people's skins and 3 days of something, and he killed all the cows and horses and donkeys. So God did a lot of plagues. God sent frogs. Let's look up here. God sent frogs. God turned water to blood. God sent gnats, flies. God gave people sores. Sent hail, locusts, darkness. And then finally the firstborn died. And if you had the blood of the lamb, passed over you. Death passed over you. But Pharaoh would not let the soldiers or the Jews leave Egypt. But Pharaoh would not let the Jews leave Egypt. Then the Jews put the bones or blood of a lamb over their doors. Then the Jews put the blood of a lamb over their doors. You got it. God killed the firstborn sons of the Egyptians or Jews. God killed the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. I wonder if it was all the Egyptians. He did not kill the firstborn sons of the Jews or Egyptians. He did not kill the firstborn sons of the Jews. He killed the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. Then finally, Pharaoh or God said that the Jews could leave. Then Pharaoh said that the Jews could leave. And that was the Exodus. Oh no, we still have more. This is a long one. The Jews left Egypt very slowly or quickly. I believe the Jews left Egypt very quickly. They did not have time to let their sunrise or bread rise. They did not have time to let their bread rise. They were making bread. I guess that's the matzo that you eat at the Seder. The Jews crossed over the sea on the dry land. Pharaoh's slaves or soldiers followed them. Whoops. Where am I? Okay. They came to the Red Sea or river. They came to the Red Sea. God sent a wind that divided the water. Pharaoh or God sent a wind that divided the water. God sent a wind that divided the waters. The Jews crossed over the sea on the dry land. Pharaoh's slaves or soldiers followed them. The Jews crossed over the sea on the dry land. Pharaoh's soldiers followed them. The wind changed and the sea covered them. The wind changed and the sea covered them. Pharaoh's soldiers all swam. Pharaoh's soldiers all died. It's a miracle, and then the Jews escaped. So Pharaoh was the leader of the Jews, king of the Egyptians, the oldest boy in a family, grasshopper, little balls of ice, a person who is not free and who works without pay. So Pharaoh is leader, it's the king of the Egyptians. You got it. Moses was leader of the Jews, the oldest boy in a family, grasshopper, little balls of ice, or a person who is not free and who works without pay. Moses is the leader of the Jews. A slave is the oldest boy in a family. Grasshopper, little balls of ice, a person who is not free and who works without pay. You got it. A slave is a person who is not free and works without pay. Hail is that the oldest boy in a family, a grasshopper, or little balls of ice. Hail is little balls of ice. Sometimes they hit your window. Pop, 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 pop. A locust is a grasshopper or the oldest boy in a family. A locust is the oldest boy in a family or grasshopper. A locust is a grasshopper. And the firstborn son is the oldest boy in a family. Sample some of the foods of the Seder. So we'll do that sometime. Okay, talk to you later. Have a good blessed day.